Hi there, this is Solitaire Ronan from Solitaire Ronan Films, and welcome to a new series called Filmstock, where I just ramble about a certain subject. This series might be very short, we'll see how it goes. So the first episode, or the first thing I'd like to talk about, is what is a masterpiece? Obviously, we in the film community take our masterpieces very seriously. We do lists, we do rankings, and it's kind of the easiest way to rank the best films by calling them a masterpiece. But what actually makes a masterpiece? Obviously, art and cinema is subjective. Films are in the eye of the beholder. Films that I consider masterpieces, other film fans would probably disagree, and vice versa. So this is an interactive channel, this is an interactive series, so I want you to submit your criteria for what a masterpiece is in your eyes. Obviously nowadays, the way the press is, the way film fans are of a certain age, it seems like almost every third or fourth film is a masterpiece. If you read the sides of buses, quite often new films are instant classics, which is one of the great oxymorons of our lives, right up there with modern antique. You know, an example is 12 Years a Slave, which is a very good film. But on the sides of buses, I was reading one of the greatest films ever made, which again, you might think it is, people might think it is, but not for me. And obviously, it was called Instant Classic, blah blah blah. So what is the criteria for a masterpiece? Now, some films have a huge influence. You know, the works of Eisenstein, the works of D.W. Griffith, but you wouldn't necessarily say they're masterpieces. For me, you can't be a masterpiece just for your historical importance or your influence. For example, Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper, a very influential film as far as American independent cinema. But for me, it's certainly not a masterpiece. It hasn't aged very well. And for me, a film that was influenced by Easy Rider, Vanishing Point, is a far better film. But Vanishing Point wouldn't have been made without Easy Rider. So for me, I'll just kind of go through my criteria for what a masterpiece is. Again, I want to hear your views on what a masterpiece is. Because some people have the opinion that a genre film can't be a masterpiece. A film has to be about big themes and big subjects to be a masterpiece. It has to be about the human condition. It has to be about life, death, the universe and everything for it to be a masterpiece. I disagree with that theory. I think a genre film, whether it's science fiction or horror or whatever, can still be a masterpiece if it is executed to an exemplary standard. For me, The Thing is a masterpiece, and yes, some people will disagree, that's fine. But for me, the definition of a masterpiece is how many scenes can you stack that are as close to perfection as they possibly can be? For me, a masterpiece is a film that is as close to perfection as you can get. And how do you achieve perfection? When you consider how hard it is to make even a competent film, with producers and studio presence, with acting, casting, sound design, music, production design. Is your camera working? Is your equipment working? Is the lighting working? So many factors go into making a good film, a competent film. So to get to a great film or a masterpiece level, the chances of actually doing that, even the best filmmakers don't always make masterpieces. That's the other thing of how do you rank your directors as far as masterpieces? Is a director who made one masterpiece and then the rest of their career wasn't that great, do they rank higher than a director who made 3 and 4 star films consistently throughout their career but never made a masterpiece? Take Bruce Robinson, for example, who for me made a masterpiece in Withnail and I, which for me is, again, stacking perfect scene after perfect scene after perfect scene. Great script, a real feel of the end of an era. But he never came close to making another film anywhere near as good as Withnail and I. So, but is he valued higher than somebody who, off the top of my head, and I'll probably get abuse, but say somebody like Don Siegel, who perhaps never made a masterpiece? You can disagree with me in the comments, because no doubt I've forgotten a massive Don Siegel masterpiece, but who just produced good and very good films and has a really good batting average for his career, but has never made a quote-unquote masterpiece. So does that mean Bruce Robinson is a better director than Don Siegel? I could probably think of better examples if I actually thought about this rather than just having a rambling chat. But this is what Filmstock is about. Rambling chats that people can write abusive comments below. So again, you know, there's the top echelon guys who have multiple masterpieces, but they're pretty few and far between. So back to what a masterpiece is for me. It's about stacking scene after scene after scene that work, that look good, sound good, the acting's good, and then at the end of the film you have as many scenes as you possibly can that are as close to perfection as possible. I have the image of The Third Man, like Carol Reed, which is in the argument for my favourite film of all time, and for me it's one of those films that's just about perfect. Again, scene after scene after scene after scene. Say you have 40 scenes in a film, can you get, more than 30 to be absolutely perfect? As close to perfection as you can. The Third Man does. Obviously, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, obviously the ending of films can change your opinion of a film dramatically. How they got away with the ending of The Third Man, I'm not quite sure. But if they changed that ending, that would have probably changed my perception of the film. The same with The Thing. If they changed the ending of The Thing to an ending that the Carpenter actually shot, that might have changed a certain degree of my opinion of the film. So again, it's all these factors that make up your chance to make a masterpiece. I'm sure not every filmmaker makes out to make a great film. Obviously, a lot of the time it is literally just a job. We kind of forget that. We do kind of hold directors up to a higher standard. They should be making a masterpiece every time they go to work. But believe it or not, directors are actually human. So sometimes it's actually just a job. And they're more enthused about certain projects rather than other projects. But I want to hear what your definition of a masterpiece. For me, you can't have a masterpiece that has an amazing first 20 minutes and an amazing last 10 minutes, but there's like an hour and a quarter in the middle where it's up and down and it doesn't really do much and it's not really that interesting, but man, it's got a great start and it's got a great ending. To me, that's not a masterpiece. You know, a lot of my favourite films, I'm doing my 150 favourite films kind of at the moment. Obviously that's a fluid list, but just for the purposes of getting a list together, I've done that. And certainly not every film on that favourites list is a masterpiece. I'm happy to admit that certain films on that are not masterpieces. But it's just an interesting conversation to have. What is your criteria for a masterpiece? Do you call a film a masterpiece even if it perhaps isn't perfect, but the themes are really good? It has flashes of brilliance. What is your criteria for calling something a masterpiece? Because I know masterpiece and genius are like the two most overused words in film review and film study and YouTube land in regards to cinema. You know, everything's a masterpiece, everybody's a genius, and that's just not true. So thanks very much for watching this first episode of Filmstock. Again, this might be a very short series, depending what floats through my brain at the time. Well, thanks very much for watching anyway. Again, I'm excited to see your comments and let me know what your criteria for a masterpiece is. Or is it something you just can't really define? You just know it when you see it. That's a masterpiece. I don't know why, but it just is. Or do you have specific criteria that you have to tick off to say the difference between a 4-star film or a 4.5-star film and a masterpiece? So thanks very much for watching. Hope you're watching masterpieces. And hopefully we'll see you again for another Filmstock. So thanks very much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Film saying farewell.